Hello guys, after this video you're going to know exactly how to get 8 out of 8 on Language Paper 1 question 2. I promise you if you watch this whole video you will be absolutely sorted for the question number 2. So firstly, what is the question? It will always ask something like, how does the writer use language to describe X? It'll obviously insert something like, how does the writer use language to describe the bus? For example. Now let's look at some techniques that we can use for this. So this is a language only question. So there'll be no structure techniques, nothing about sentence length, paragraph length, none of that, just language techniques. So things like metaphor. So a metaphor, for example, is saying something is something else. And this is to create like a strong image or comparison. For example, time is a thief. We're not saying that it's like a thief, we're saying it actually is a thief. It is something else. Another easy one to pick out is obviously a simile. This is comparing one thing to another using like or as. He was as fast as lightning. Basic examples, but just to show you. Metaphor saying it is something, simile saying it's like something. Alliteration, again, another easy one that you can pick out, is repeating the same sound at the start of nearby words. Cold, crisp, clean, the CCC, that is alliteration. So again, looking at these things, these techniques that are easy to spot out because that is what's going to actually help you in the exam. And then personification is giving human qualities to non-human things. So for example, the wind whispered through the trees. A wind can't whisper. Whispering is a human trait, so therefore that is personification. Really easy, and it shows, if it's comparing it to something that is non-human to human, it shows that it's perhaps powerful as well. And then another one we got is hyperbole. This is exaggeration for effect. Like I've told you a million times. That is hyperbolic. Of course, nobody's actually told you a million times, but it's this over exaggeration to really emphasize a point. For example, in this, that the person isn't listening. So you always want to have a bank of techniques. And I know it's such a common misconception that you can't revise the language, but you absolutely can. And plus, all the kids who are not going to revise, they can lower the grade boundaries because you're going to revise and you're going to get a higher grade. It's easier to revise for than literature, so that's why you should actually make more of an effort to do it because it's an easier uptake. You could revise for a few hours for language and probably get the same effect that you would if you had to revise for 15 hours for literature. So you want to revise the bank of techniques, and you also want to have structures as well for each question. That's really, really important. So as I mentioned, structure is super, super important to know for every single language question. You should have a structure that ticks off everything is required for you in the mark scheme with sentence starters. So this one here, we've taken directly from the Light Up Hub, which are PETA, ETA, Z. So you can see here, PETA, ETA, Z stands for point, evidence, technique, analysis, and zoom. So as I mentioned, all of these structures are taken from the Light Up Hub, and I'll just kind of show you what this looks like in the Light Up Hub. I'm going to go through it briefly in this video here, but just if you wanted it in detail on the Light Up Hub, we go through the full thing for question 2. We give breakdowns, do's and don'ts, we break down the mark schemes, we give model examples, we give you structures, and we give you this for every single question for language that is proven and written by examiners. So all you've got to do is actually implement it in the exam. So what we want to do for this question is we firstly want to have our point. Now, point means we want to have a word from the question. So whatever the question is asking, like, how does the writer use language to describe the T-Rex? We want to make sure we're including words about the T-Rex because that is our point. Then our evidence, we want to embed it in, which means we don't want to say this is shown by the quote. We want to avoid that completely for language. We just want to embed it in. Then T is for technique. This is, we're only going to use language techniques. I'm going to show you a little example next to it. Analysis, we want to use what, how, why, basically saying what is the technique, how does it show that effect, and why does it show that, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Then we do another evidence technique analysis with a new quote, and then we zoom. So we zoom in on one specific word quote. So let's have a look at this. This is color coded to show you exactly how we do it. Now the question was something like, how does the writer use language to show Mr. Fisher's views on the stories? So the writer presents Mr. Fisher's views on stories of the past as filled with admiration and longing for a time when storytelling captured the imagination. You can see my point is very clear. I've stated that there's admiration and longing, so that's really clear. Now I'm going to embed in my evidence. So remember, I'm not going to say this is shown by the quote, I'm going to embed it in. By describing how Mr. Fisher remembered a time when books were golden, this is embedding it in, the writer used a metaphor, now I'm going on to my technique, which is my language technique, to suggest that stories were once seen as precious and magical, something of a high worth that enriched the minds of young readers. The idea of golden implies a golden age, a time of excellence now lost, and reflects Mr. Fisher's belief that modern stories lack the same richness. So you can see, in this bit here, my analysis is the longest. That is super important. What you want to do for language paper 1 question 2 is your analysis should be the longest thing. And you can see I've really overly explained it. I've said what the metaphor does, because remember, a metaphor saying something is something else. So I'm saying he does see it as precious and magical, just like something being golden. And I've kind of got really dived into what I meant by that, about the idea of golden and what it illustrates. So you can see I've used my what, how, why. What is the technique? So that is my metaphor. How it shows that, what the effect is, it shows that it's precious and magical. And why it shows that is because golden implies a golden age, and it reflects that he doesn't believe that the modern stories have the same richness. Love it. Amazing. Now we're going to do our second evidence technique analysis. We're going to get another quote, another technique, another bit of analysis. The writer strengthens this by describing stories that ran like gazelles and pounced like tigers. So you can see I've embedded that in, using animalistic similes, my other technique, to bring stories to life as fast, wild, and exciting. So you can see that what I've said is the simile brings the stories to life, because obviously pounce like tiger, think a tiger is something alive. So I've said, it makes it seem like the stories are alive, they're fast and wild. So that's a good top tip. When you're talking about similes and metaphors, think about what does a simile compare it to. Think about the qualities of that thing in the simile, like a tiger. We're comparing it to a tiger. A tiger is wild, it's fast, it's exciting, it's quite fearful as well. Like, you'll be terrified of a tiger. So we can say that it's the same for how he feels towards books. So just think about what is your association with the simile, and then just make it say that whatever they're talking about is that associated with that. This portrays the stories as unpredictable and energetic, suggesting they once had the power to grip and surprise readers. So you can see that I've not just stopped there at saying that life is fast, wild, and exciting. I've gone on to really explain what this portrays, what this shows. And then lastly is my zoom. So what I want to do is I want to zoom in on a word. Now you can either decide to zoom in on a word that you've used in a quote or another word from a different quote. It's completely up to you. The verb pounce especially highlights the thrill of storytelling. It evokes sudden movements and danger, applying that books once had the ability to catch a reader off guard and immerse them in unexpected adventures. So you can see that I've just zoomed in. I've just zoomed in on one specific word, and then I've just analysed it. You don't need to give a technique for that one. So that is a full breakdown of what you should be doing for language paper 1 question 2 and using this structure. And I promise you, having structures, guys, is the way to smash English language. You want to have structures, you want to have your techniques, you want to have sentence starters pre-learned as well, because that is really, really helpful. And then you want to know what to do and what to avoid. So then, because you can't pre-learn the same way you can for literature, you want to pre-learn those things so you've got them in the forefront of your head. And structures are the way to do that. And then what to avoid. So what the first thing we want to avoid is listing features without analysing their effect, which is technique spotting. So you can see here, what my analysis is in depth. That is my longest bit in my paragraph, because I've not just stated the technique, picked out a technique and not said anything about it. I really dove into what it meant. So for example, if they said the writer uses simile and pounce like tigers and also uses repetition, it makes the story exciting. That's a bad example. I've literally just stated the technique. It makes the story exciting. I've not really explained the effect of the technique. I've not used my what, how, why approach. I want to go into detail. Now, a good example of how he changes up is the simile pounce like tigers suggests the stories were wild, unpredictable, and full of energy, showing how thrilling and dynamic Mr. Fisher found them. So you can see, what did I do again? I thought about, okay, what does the simile do? If I'm comparing something to a simile, I'm saying it's like a tiger. I'm thinking about, okay, what is a tiger like? Okay, it's full of energy, it's very unpredictable. I'm going to say that is how Mr. Fisher views the stories. Easy. So just think about the simile, make the comparison, and then link it to what you're talking about. So that's what you want to avoid. Don't just pick out a technique, tell me the effect of it. Just think about, what does that technique do? And if you are struggling as well, you just want to make sure that you've got the effects of techniques memorized, because that will really help you for English language. So you want to know, to avoid technique spotting, just know generally what the effect of a technique is. For example, if we go on to the language technique sheet here, and let's just have a look at alliteration. So here, we know that the effect of alliteration is that it draws attention to certain phrases or sentences. So what I would do is, if I was putting in alliteration and I was talking about that technique, that language technique, then what I would then do is say, oh, this emphasises, because then I'm talking about the effect of the technique. And you can just scroll through this and just have a look at the effects of techniques and just remember the ones that you feel like you're quite confident to pick out and talk about, because that way then you won't be technique spotting, you'll actually be thinking about the effect of the technique. Now, what we want to do is we want to focus on precise examples and analyse them in detail. That is the main thing we want to do. So we want to avoid technique spotting and we want to analyse in detail. Why we want to do that is because students who narrow their focus to fewer well-chosen language features and explore the effects in depth scored higher. This is straight from the examiner's mark scheme. I've spoken to plenty of English language examiners, so I can verify this is true. So a bad example is the writer uses simile, metaphor, and alliteration. This shows how Mr. Fisher feels. It creates a picture in our heads. Don't like that. We haven't got precise examples. I just give me one example and I want it in depth. Rather, the writer uses the word golden to describe stories of the past, which suggests Mr. Fisher sees them as valuable and timeless. It also evokes nostalgia, as if he's reflecting on a lost age where stories had more meaning or beauty. So you can see here, what I've done is I picked one thing, I've zoomed in on golden, and I picked out two different interpretations about it. I've said one thing about how he sees it as valuable and timeless, but I've also said that it evokes nostalgia, which is a really easy way to get more marks in anything in language. It's just give another reason, either a reason to support it or a reason to go against it, saying, however it could show, or saying, and it also shows this. So I've also said it also shows this. So either decide to add on to it or say it shows it a different way. And that is the easiest way that you can smash this question, guys. Make sure you know some language techniques, know peta, eta, z, know some sentence starters for that, and know to avoid technique spotting, and then to analyse examples in detail by giving alternative interpretations or adding on to what you've said. Easiest way to do it. If you like this video, make sure you subscribe, send it to a friend, and of course, if you did want to get all of this in a bit more detail, it's all on the Let Up Pub.